Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick, and today guys we're going to be jumping down into the world of Vechain, taking a look at the most recent price action, what I think is likely to happen next, and all that wonderful stuff. As I get into the video, if you find it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. If you haven't yet joined us in Discord guys, what you're waiting for, check it out, link is in the description below. Let's jump right down into this one, right? So this is Vechain paired up with USDT. This is on the mixed contract from 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏 and the 1 hour time frame. So here we can see some interesting things. We've seen some fair value gaps getting stacked up and left behind. So this is an interesting kind of thing to kind of keep in mind. That price will most likely move down into these fair value gaps. However, with the current setup that's going on, I think we actually have a move to the upside gearing up here before we have a correction down. So let's go ahead and just reflect on that. What I'll do is I'm going to bring up this one here, so just so you can see our expectations were this move to the upside. Now, we had a break to the upside here, but it wasn't quite what we needed it to be. So this has changed things ever so slightly. So let's go ahead and just quickly adjust this out. Just pull this in, right? So we can see our three-wave correction here, and what it's looking like right now is that we have a three-wave pattern to take us up into this range, our box again, into that higher C wave expectations where we were kind of getting rejected from before. This seems to be the area of rejection that we're looking for. This is basically being 2.1 cent to 2.174 cent. This is the area that I think is going to hold as resistance. Okay, so as we can kind of see, if I come back to our chart here on 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏, we kind of run our fib levels, and we can see we're going to probably be pushing right back up into a double top situation here under a three-wave pattern. It would look like this, approximately 2.121, but again it can push up a little bit higher, more towards that 2.176 if it needed to. Right now we see an indication between 21.21 and 21.49, but that may be subject to change slightly later. But ultimately it looks like we have a slight move to the upside. Now, what would prevent that? A move to the upside would be prevented if we were to come down lower than 1.980, at least under the structure that you see it here. Doesn't stop us from having kind of bounces and moves to the upside. It just stops us on this particular structure. For the most part, one of the things that we need to acknowledge here is that they are still in a potential bearish pattern where we can see a move to the downside more towards equilibrium. Now, equilibrium is currently sat at approximately 1.931 and 1.949. That also happens to coincide with our 200 EMA sat at 1.951, and this is really important because as we can see the fair value gaps and we see the equilibrium at 200 EMA, there's a higher probability that that is where we're likely to move to on the short term. Okay, so possible that we move up a little bit for a double top and then we move on down more towards 200 EMA in equilibrium. Okay, that's kind of where the short-term price action is looking like there. Okay, so we can see that kind of working in our favor if we're able to kind of spot where it's going on these smaller time frames. Okay, but these are all just micro movements that are happening on the 1 hour time frame. This doesn't give us that kind of big macro picture of where we think things are heading on a bigger scale. For that, we want to be zooming out into the daily time frame. The daily time frame is going to help us understand whether or not we've got a significant move to the downside here, or whether or not we are going to be looking at just nothing but upward movements, right? And I'm not confident in thinking that we are done with the lows just yet. So for Vechain here, I would say that it looks like we have a significant pullback due. At least it's indicated to us on the 1 hour or 1 day time frame, right? We might not yet be complete. We can see that the 200 EMA is set up there at 2.166 cent, and therefore we can always think of maybe a slight push to the upside to hit resistance on that 200 EMA. But for the most part, a healthy correction to the downside is due. And one of the areas that I think of as being really interesting is going to be right up in on this one right here, 1.575. I think this is an area that may hold as a bit of support on a retracement for Vechain. Now, obviously with this, we have to consider that we have not finished with our lows just yet. That's a possibility. If we measure this area here and move this over to our existing bounce, we'll take the existing high for example, we could see a potential move here that puts us between our, well actually yeah, pretty much our 1.575. It's actually a little bit lower than that, 1.547 okay, down to the 1.1123. Okay, that area there would be a Z wave structure. So you can see how it would be potentially a new low. Not a guarantee, of course, but it would be under a WXYXZ structure like this. So you can see how this 1.575 really does stand out as an interesting area of support, maybe just wicking down slightly lower into our Z wave structure, and then we could reverse from there. So no guarantees of a new low, but something that is still technically possible that it happens. So our existing low coming in at 1.318. Okay, so for Vechain here, it looks like a downward move is likely to occur on these larger time frames, but before they can occur, we probably have to push on up. From our momentum indicator of our stochastic RSI, you can see that it's oversold on the 1 hour time frame, oversold on the 4 hour time frame, and oversold on the 8 hour time frame. This is indicating that we're likely to see a momentum shift upwards before we have any major correction to the downside, meaning that we can probably be pushing up more towards that 2.166-200 EMA area on the price chart before we have retracement. Also very similar to what I was explaining here, where we have this double top scenario, we may even push up a slightly higher. As I said, 21.66 or 2.166 is an interesting range that we might be trying to target as well. Okay, but for the most part, that we have to kind of consider that on the daily time frame, the fact that it is overbought is an indication that we like to see retracement. Taking a look at the weekly, we're in a similar position where we are almost up into the overbought range, and therefore we're likely to see retracement. Now, again, it is still possible that we rally on up higher here before we have that retracement, but again, no guarantees are to be made at this point. One of the things that would be really interesting as a potential bearish situation for Vechain would be a three-wave pattern here, taking us down to lower than 1 cent, coming in at 0.00865. Again, no guarantees until we understand the structure in a little bit more detail, but for the most part, we are gearing up for a bit of a move to the downside on the weekly, but not yet though. I think that will come once we are overbought on the 8 hour time frame, the 4 hour time frame, and so forth. On the monthly time frame, we've got some interesting kind of movements, and again, you can see the Z wave structure as I was kind of talking about it as a potential. There is also an interesting zone on our monthly time frame, coming in at 0.00799 and 0.00970. This one here is an interesting pocket that I think we may visit at some point in the future. No guarantees, of course, but it's very interesting to kind of spot these things in there. So all in all, as we can kind of see and we can kind of articulate here, we probably have some small moves to the upside to be expected on the 1 hour time frame, probably breaking the local highs if possible, or the most recent highs anyway. As I said, 21.66 is interesting to keep an eye on that. But for the most part, on the larger macro level, we are of course talking about pulls to the downside. Now, time horizons on that can take months to play out. I can't time the market, but it will take quite some time before you actually start to see some of those numbers getting hit. Sometimes it can move really fast, sometimes it can move really slow. So just be aware that it can take a very long time before you actually see these numbers materialize on these kind of daily, weekly time frames. In most cases, you will probably be talking a couple of months or so. So it'd be interesting to kind of see how quickly things do play out, but for the most part, my expectations are that we're probably going to be in a slow burn to the downside. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, but I think I'm going to leave this video right there. If you found it useful and informative, smash the like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new, subscribe, and don't forget to join us down in Discord. Until the next one though, guys, have a fantastic day.
We are not financial advisors. None of what we have communicated verbally or in writing here should be considered as financial advice. It is not. Do your own research before investing in any digital asset or affiliate offers, and understand that investing in any crypto is risky. If you do, you need to be prepared to lose your entire investment. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. All our videos are strictly personal opinions. Please make sure you do your own research and never take our opinions for financial guidance. There are multiple strategies, and not all strategies fit all people. Our videos are not financial advice.